You're listening to Parents, You've Got This, the expert guide to parenthood.
The complete guide to pregnancy, birth, baby and parenthood.
Your baby goes through tremendous growth in the first few years of life. One of the best ways to keep track of your baby's growth is to learn about baby milestones. Today on the podcast, we welcome back Dr Lexi Frydenberg to talk all about baby milestones.
Dr Lexi Frydenberg is an experienced paediatrician and she looks after babies right up to when they're 18, and she specialises in all sorts of conditions that affect them. She's a fellow podcaster and she's also a mum as well. Welcome, Lexi. Thanks so much for talking to us about baby milestones. Now, we know there's a huge range of normal when it comes to baby milestones, but my first question is, what is a baby milestone?
Yeah, you're right, Christy. Babies' brains develop really quickly, particularly in that first 5 years of life. So we need some way of tracking their development. So in general, development happens in the same way for most children's, but at different ages and stages. So really the milestones are what we use and maternal child health nurses use to track a baby and a child's development in order to pick up any abnormalities or any concerns that we have, so we can get onto it early and address these, really to try and, at the end point, to optimise your child's development. So in a broad sense, there are sort of four main categories of developmental milestones we look at. There's gross motor skills, which are the big, large body movements like walking, jumping, etc. Fine motor skills, which are the small body movements like picking up or reaching, grasping. Language and communication, which might be non-verbal communication as well in those early years. And social and emotional development. So at each stage, your maternal child health nurse or doctor will check for those four areas if there are any red flags or major concerns.
So Lexi, can we go through those typical checks that you would expect at each stage? So let's start with a baby of 1 to 2 months old. At what stage does that check happen, and what are the milestones that you're looking for a 1 to 2 month old baby?
Yeah, so usually at that sort of first baby check, often it's a 6 to 8 week check. We check predominantly for gross motor skills, so whether your baby can hold its head up, particularly when it's on its tummy, it's just starting to lift its head, and whether they're moving both arms and legs, making sure there's not stiffness or an abnormality in one side of the body. There's not a lot we check for fine motor skills at that age, but the social and emotional skills even start developing from birth, as you probably both know. So a baby will respond when they're crying, and if you pick them up, they might calm down. They might start looking at your face. They might start smiling in that 1 to 2 month range. They're listening to voices. They might react to some sounds. And many babies are quite social at this age, and you can tell that really early on.
And when should you worry?
So I think it's important to have some familiarity about what to expect, but that's why we've got these maternal child health nurse checks in place, because if there is something significant, your health nurse will either just review it or get a referral to a paediatrician, usually early on.
What are the sort of milestones, Lexi, for a 3 to 6 month old baby?
Yeah, so once again, dividing it into those sections, the gross motor skills, a baby might start to roll at 4 to 5 months, both front to back and back to front. They might push up when they're on their tummy, and at about 6 months they might start sitting with some support. With regards to fine motor skills, the baby might reach and grab a toy and might start putting things in their mouth. With regards to language and communication, they'll have some squealing noises, and you can play a game and take turns making sounds. And from a social emotional point of view, the baby might start recognising familiar faces, laugh, show excitement. They often flap their hands or their legs.
I love it.
Yeah, and they show interest in people and they start responding to their name. So there is a variation of normal, but I'm just giving you a bit of a feel about what to expect over that time.
Is it important, Lexi, or should we not be doing it to encourage our little ones to reach these milestones? So you spoke about turning from back to front or front to back and sitting supported. Are they things that we should be trying to encourage our little one to do, or is having tummy time sufficient to develop those skills? Should we be dangling a toy over to the side, or or do we just let them be at their own pace?
Yeah, very great question. And I think people can get quite hung up on the milestones.
Yeah.
And I really don't get hung up. They're there as a guide if there are any red flags. But what we want parents to do is just to engage with your child. They want to make faces with you and make noises and just be there in the moment, and your child will develop these skills, these social, emotional, language skills. And in terms of gross and fine motor skills, babies who are given opportunity to be on the ground and play, or, just move their hands and grab things, they will develop these skills at their own pace. So yes, you can put them on tummy time, but I really wouldn't get caught up on, setting your watch and making sure every day they've got this amount of time.
What do you typically expect in regards to milestones for a 9-month-old baby?
Yeah, so I love 9 to 12 months babies. They're just starting to really come into themselves. So from a gross motor point of view, they might be sitting independently, they might start crawling. From a fine motor point of view, they reach and grab and transfer everything, puts everything in their mouth, starts raking things towards them, and they often develop a little pincer grip between that first and second finger, and they can pick up little things like raisins from the floor. This is the time to be really careful and crawl on all fours and check your floors, because everything goes in the mouth. Also at 9 months, from a speech and language point of view, they start babbling, they're quite social, they might show a few emotions, happy, sad, anger, and they can start differentiating between people that are familiar and strangers. So they might start getting a bit clingy. They often enjoy games. That peekaboo game's a really good one. And when you leave the room, that's when they often react. So you might get a big tantrum when you leave the room because of, that familiarity. So yeah, they're starting to develop that personality at 9 months.
What about at a year, Lexi? This is such a big milestone as parents. When your little one reaches a year, I think it's as much a bigger milestone for us as it is for them, if not bigger. What are some of the baby milestones that you're looking for in a 1-year-old?
Yeah. So once again, it's that progression. So from a gross motor point of view, babies go from crawling to often pulling to stand, furniture walking, and they might walk independently. But, if they're 12 months and they're not, it's not a red flag yet. We've got lots of time for that. From a fine motor point of view, they start drinking from a cup and might want to finger feed and have that independence. From a language point of view, you might start getting a few words, mama, dada, usually dada first, which can be quite frustrating. But they often can start following instructions and understanding a bit more. And from a social emotional point of view, at 12 months, they often start showing affection and love, responding to their name. They might show fear in new situations and be a bit clingy as well. But, 12 months is also, a really beautiful age.
And what baby milestones would we see at around 18 months?
Yeah, so once again, progression. So gross motor, most kids by 18 months are walking independently. So between 12 and 18 months that happens. They might start climbing on and off the couch, so often falls happen at this time. From a fine motor point of view, they might start scribbling on everything, which can be good, but, if you don't want them to, keep those pencils and pens out of their reach. Drinking from a cup, finger feeding, might try and use a spoon. From a language point of view, a few more words. They might follow one-step instructions, pretty simple instructions still. And from a social emotional point of view at 18 months, they're often pointing to show you things. They want that sort of shared interest, that curiosity. You might start looking at books, or you might have already, but they might be a bit more interested in looking at a book and looking at, particular things you're pointing at. And they might let you it might let you dress them, which is often quite a challenge at this age group because they want some independence.
Yeah, me do.
What about at 2 years, Lexi? What should we be looking for there?
So once again, dividing it into those domains, the gross motor, often children will be walking quite well by 2 years of age and often running and running away from you, but they don't have a sense of safety yet. So please keep a close eye on them. Some children might start kicking a ball around this age as well. From a fine motor point of view, they've often got their finger feeding well and truly nailed, but they might start using a spoon. They might start building a tower with a few blocks and colouring in shapes and colours. From a language point of view, their words might increase. They might have more words, and they might start putting 2 to 4 words together at 2 years of age. Once again, understanding of instructions, following simple instructions, naming a few familiar people, pointing to body parts or pictures in books, that all starts to happen. And often they might start moving from parallel play, where they play next to another child, to showing some interest in playing with another child and really excited to see other children, which is really nice. But as we mentioned, these milestones are guidelines, and there's a broad range of normal, and that's why it's important to have those regular checks and also trust your instincts.
That's such great advice, Lexi. If you've got a premature baby, are the milestones the same or as a baby that was born at term?
Yeah, so it really also depends on the degree of prematurity. So it's very different for a 26-weeker than a 36-weeker. But we do really correct under 36 weeks. We do correct for age because, these babies were, as you said, premature, and they haven't had the chance to spend that time in the womb. So yes, it is different for premature babies.
So when you say we correct, you mean that we judge them about when they should have been born?
Yeah. So we call it their corrected age.
Lexi, we love what you said before about how, there's lots of time for them to achieve these milestones, and keeping that in mind, and in parents groups and things, when you see someone else's child is, overachieving over there in the corner, how do we know when we should be seeking help at each stage?
Yeah, I think it is really challenging. I think there's beautiful things about being part of a group, that social, emotional support and interactions. But when parents start comparing, it's really hard, or when we compare as parents. But that's why we've got a really good system in Australia with the maternal child health nurse. There's regular checks. If during COVID or if you've moved from interstate overseas and you've missed some of those checks, just go and take your child to the GP or maternal child health nurse and just check in. And they've got checklists that will check those milestones. We don't expect parents to know these milestones and try and remember them. But as I said, if you're worried, if the health nurse is worried, if the GP is worried, they will send you to get checked, either through a general paediatrician if there's multiple areas of concern, or if there might be one area like the gross motor skills, your child's not walking or dragging one leg when they're crawling, you might go straight to an allied health professional like a physio, or if it's fine motor skills, an OT, an occupational therapist. Or if there's speech and language concerns, they might organise some tests, like hearing test is really important, and may, if they're usually over 2 or 2.5, send to a speech pathologist. But, vision and hearing, really important. I might not have mentioned that yet, but, your health nurse, GP ped, will send you to the right people to get help if they're worried, and investigate if they are worried there's a reason behind these delays.
Well, thank you so much, Lexi, for being on the podcast today. That's such great information, and also some good advice there about not to worry and just enjoy these little people, because it goes by just so quick.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to the Parents You've Got This Expert Guide to Parenthood podcast. Never forget, parents, you've got this.
Join a Parents You've Got This masterclass today to be prepared, excited and educated for pregnancy, birth, baby and parenthood. Visit www.parentsyouvegotthis.com.au and sign up for a masterclass today.